Good afternoon and good morning to some people who are in a different time zone than me. It's 2 p.m. Eastern where I am, which is Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Thank you everyone for joining me. Quick introduction to this presentation. This is a very relevant topic to a lot of people right now across North America. This is a really big problem that everyone's kind of facing, which is days on market have increased, where it was just announced that for the first time in over a decade, there's 500,000 more buyers or more sellers than buyers. And so the market is flipped. And this is really to address this. My name is Rebecca Rose. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Studio. And so I just want to welcome everyone who's joining me today. It's a real pleasure to have you with me as I walk through our insights and thinking that hopefully add tons of value to your business and help you kind of just evaluate in a really methodical way how you're approaching selling your listings so that you can address the changes and shifts in the market and all the kind of economic dynamics that are impacting this. So I'll just a brief introduction to myself if we haven't met. Like I said, my name is Rebecca. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the world's first and only interactive storytelling platform for agents and brokerages. I've been over 15 years in strategic marketing leadership. We've been recognized by a variety of the thought leaders in the industry. We've been around for 12 years, so I've seen a lot of change. Over that time, I've had the privilege of working with some of the best in the industry. So I'm really here to just share everything that I've learned and are hearing from my customers and from the market at large. And hopefully I can add some value today with the challenges that you're facing. So the agenda for this presentation, we're just going to talk about the market challenge. And like I said, this is not, usually a lot of problems are hyper local to very specific markets, but this is really something that's happening nationally and across North America. It's happening in the United States and Canada as well. We're going to talk about why properties sit on the market. The sell fast formula that we see can have an impact of reducing time on market by up to 30%. And I'm happy to answer questions that are asked in the comments today. I do ask, I'm not going to be checking the comments as I go, but I will check them at the end and I'll go through them and answer as many as I can. One thing I want to just, mention is, the challenge that we're facing today. This is something, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the industry. It doesn't matter if you're a top producer or you're just getting started. This is ubiquitously happening across the board. Days on market are now 45 to 60 days on average. And if you actually look at how many homes have had to reduce their pricing, and this is just, looking at March's statistics, it's gotten even worse now, but it's doubled. Home prices are and sellers are having to drop their prices. This is no longer the 2021 market. I remember a time when putting on your listing on MLS sells within 48 hours. You don't have to do very much. And it's why there was a huge influx of agents joining the market. It was so robust. And now we have to work a little bit harder to get those listings moving. And so let's go through what that looks like. But I do want to mention that the risks to your business of having, an increased days on market is significant. And not everyone realizes what the risks are. It's not just about cash flow. Cash flow is a big deal, right? It's the longer it sits, the more money you've put into marketing and trying to move that listing, and the longer it takes to get the return on that investment. But it also affects your reputation. Customers who are looking to sell, who may be considering you, have a property in the range that you generally sell, are looking online and then they go, she or he hasn't really moved that in 60 days. The home's just like mine. They lose confidence that you're the right one to pick for that listing. And there's a lot of conversation right now about how discerning buyers are right now. in how discerning sellers are right now and choosing their agents. It's created a lot of tension in the market and trying to keep your business going the way that it was going before. Unhappy sellers are not good either. If you don't manage that relationship properly, as you kind of work to do everything you need to do to move that listing faster, creates tension in the relationship. It might mean not getting the referral afterwards that you rely on to keep your business going. Um, and then, that risk of losing more listings, like I said, is tied to your reputation. It's tied to what people are observing. Everything you have on the market right now is what people are looking at and part of their decision making as they compare you to somebody else and who they're going to work with. So all of these kind of get lumped together as a risk. Now, like I said, everyone's facing this, but there are things that you can do to move things faster. And I think a lot of people actually do some or many of these things, but this is really now you have to go all in. And you really have to pay attention to how you're running the launch of your listings and the presentations. And I'm going to go through all the details on that. But you can't just do one, you can't just do part of it. You now really have to think about the entire thing, the entire program that you're running. So why properties sit on the market? Well, 72% of stall listings aren't just priced, they're just not priced strategically. A lot of that has to do with making sure that you have a broad enough audience to consider the property that you have on market. A lot has to do with the management of that relationship you have with your seller. We'll talk more about strategically how to manage that. Poor presentation. People got out of habit when they were used to putting listings up on market, selling within 48 hours. They didn't have to invest a ton in the marketing of that property and how they are presenting that property. That's changed. And perceived value can have a really big impact on the price, preventing price reduction or minimizing price reduction. And so high quality media matters a lot. Distribution, how many people are actually seeing your listing? There's an estimation of 30% of agents only post on Zillow and send out postcards, which I'm sure if you're listening, that sounds crazy. You got to send it out more to that. You got to get way more visibility than just the syndication network. You have to do more as an agent. You have to become a marketer. And part of that is taking things to the next level with buyer targeting, and knowing who the right buyer is for that specific property and how to communicate to them specifically. So we call this the self-ask formula, and it's a combination of 5 things. These are all going to be very familiar to you, I'm sure, if you're watching, but let's go through them because this is your checklist. And if you've got a property on market right now, you want to make sure that you've checked off all of these items. Otherwise, you might want to go back and re-look at some of the pieces of your marketing campaign. So it's from property launch to strategic pricing, segmentation and storytelling and story selling, multi-channel marketing, and then the open house. And all of these are really critical pieces. So launch with a bang. I can't overstate this enough. This is the first 48 hours on market actually is the opportunity to get the most amount of eyeballs on it. Everyone's searching for new listings, what's new. And so making sure you do it right at the beginning is really, really important. I talked to a lot of agents that are really good at this, and then there's some people who think they're good at this, but there's some like missing nuance to what they're doing. So just pay attention. The first, obviously, that you're doing is market analysis. A lot of professional agents are very good at this, but analyzing the hyper local market conditions, price strategizing with your seller upfront, identify the right buyer segments. And what that means is who's the right fit for this particular home and lifestyle, not just the property, not just, who needs 4 bedrooms, but think about the community at large. Think about the type of demographic of people who live there or people who are moving from somewhere else into here. There's a reason why someone's moving. And then identify the main selling points and hone in on them, both on home and community. But you really want to get very targeted and not have too many key selling points. You just want them to be hyper relevant to the demographic that you're selling to. So, launch part 2 is really about visual impact. This is especially important if you're in kind of a higher end or luxury category, but it actually matters for every type of listing. This means properly staging, and if that's not possible, at least decluttering, depersonalizing. If you've got empty rooms, and I know a lot of people invest in staging, but I see so many empty rooms in listings online. You want to make sure that if you aren't able to do professional staging, you at least do virtual staging. It really makes a really big difference. Professional HDR photography, that's where you get the inside and outside light showing up in that photograph. Again, it's very popular. If you're not already investing in HDR photography, it makes a world of difference. 3D walkthroughs and video are really important because it adds an extra layer of interactivity and allows people to get a better sense of the space. And that's obviously very, very important. But the last is how you package it. And packaging it in a storybook is very, very important. That's examples of what I'm showing on screen here. I'm going to go into that more in a bit. But just doing high, really good quality media important, but it doesn't go far enough because telling the story and helping people imagine and envision the lifestyle of that property is really where you take it to the next step. Because if you don't take it that far, then you're leaving it to them to leave it to their imagination on their own and try and piece together all the information that you're throwing at them. And if it's disjointed, if you've got a single property website and you've got images, a dump of images and a big paragraph of text, you're asking somebody to do more work in their brains than they should. So let's talk about pricing really quickly. This is something a lot of people already do, but if this isn't something you've done with your seller on your particular listing or you've skipped over this step because you've been busy, this is again just getting centered around all the things you need to check off on your list. So strategic pricing, there's, a couple aspects to this. One is obviously you do your data analysis, and a lot of people do this. But having a price drop agreement at the beginning of the relationship before you launch is really critical to your seller because you can say, look, I know that this is where you want to price it at. It's within the range of other properties. However, this is the situation in the market we're in. This is the reality. If we need to drop it, here's how we're going to do it. Right. And making sure that you're not just dropping for the sake of dropping. You're going a little bit up. Let's say you're at 505 and you want to drop it. Well, you can go down to 499. You're not dropping it that much, but just by going down to that lower tier, you're opening up to a much bigger pool of eyeballs, of buyers who could potentially look at this and who's searching in that lower tier, people who cap their search at 499. Again, I know a lot of people know this, but this is something just to keep a reminder of. And when you're having, because sometimes people allow their sellers kind of to lead that conversation. And so making sure that conversation's happening up front and that you're agreeing ahead of time and how strategically you're going to do that really, really helps. So let's talk about segmentation and story selling. But story selling is the combination of storytelling for the purpose of persuasion. In the context of real estate, what this means is that there's a lifestyle here that you're selling, and it's not a feature. It's not about the features of the property. And so lifestyle is a much bigger story. It's about who the person is and the life they're transitioning into and the pain that they're currently experiencing and the reasons why they're moving. And then it allows you to understand what to highlight about the particular property, what to highlight about the particular community, and get very specific about the things that they're going to care about the most. And then you want to make sure that it's hyper visual, interactive, and engaging. Right? That's where the experience of the story comes in, but making sure the content itself is aligned to how human beings imagine things and feel things, not just checking off features of a house. The second part of this is a little bit more sophisticated, but it's a combination of identifying key buyer personas. And that means that it could be demographic, it could be life stage. Maybe, you've got a particular property that's good both for, you know, young professionals and also downsizing retirees. And those are your two personas. You're going to communicate very differently to those two personas. They're in completely different stages of life. They have completely different needs, a completely different orientation, and they want to know that you're speaking directly to them. So understanding who they are and what they care about is really important, so that then you can craft different stories to each type of buyer. And I'm going to share with you one way in which you can craft stories. That's really where our expertise at Studio comes in. And this is called a storybook. I mentioned this earlier. So, like I said, having fantastic media is one thing. It's really important that the house looks spectacular, that you've taken really good photography, that you've got, interactive tours and video. But when you do that, you are losing something if you don't package it in the right way. If you just treat all those images and video and 3D walkthroughs as information, and you're not packaging it in a way that's emotional and meaningful to human beings, so that they don't have to sit and figure out what it means to live in a new place.
Rebecca, we just lost your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I'm sorry, I think I pressed a button on my microphone. I apologize. I'll take a step back. But thank you for letting me know. I gotta be careful about all these buttons. So what I was saying is that help packaging things in the right way is you bringing somebody along into a place of imagination for their future, placing themselves into that new situation, that new home, that new life, so that it's now aspirational. And when people fall in love, and you get enough people falling in love, that's when you get the interest up. That's when you get all the visits at the open house. That's when you get the multiple offers. That's when you sell faster, right? The whole goal of the entire marketing campaign is getting enough people falling in love, going, oh, this is what I need. This is what I want for the next stage of my life. And then getting enough people seeing that, getting it out there in the world, enough people seeing that ultimately is what drives the speed of a home sale. So when I talked about segmentation, you want, again, to pick 2-3 buyer segments, because if you advertise to everyone about everything, it's not specific to anyone and they can't relate to it as well. But if you get very specific to a particular demographic, who they are, the reason why they're moving, the pain of their current state, and the aspiration of the new opportunity, and they feel like you're speaking directly to them. They're represented in the visuals, they're represented in the way you're telling the story, in the specific things, the key characteristics of this new lifestyle that you're outlining speaks to what they're after. They feel understood. They feel like this is in alignment to what they were hoping for, and you're going to get a lot more interest from that group of people. And so you can then take the same story and retell it in 2 or 3 different ways, and then create targeted campaigns towards those individuals, and that will increase the eyeballs from the right kinds of people, giving them the right message, and therefore increasing the interest and the likelihood of getting an offer faster. So the multi-channel marketing is really important in this, which means the syndication component can't just be what you do. Syndication and postcards can't be the only things that you do. And a lot of people know this. I do see an increase in kind of social engagement, but just so you know, social media organic is limited. And what I mean by organic is if you've just got a Facebook page What a lot of people don't know on Facebook is that the reach, how many people actually see your posts, are limited to the people following you. That's different than, for example, if you're posting on X or TikTok or Instagram, as an example. LinkedIn is limited to professionals. So if your particular demographic isn't on LinkedIn, it doesn't matter how many times you post to LinkedIn, it's the wrong platform for your demographic. So getting an understanding of the different social channels. And on our YouTube page, I actually have a post specifically, a video specifically breaking down how the different platforms work and what they're good for. But it's really important to understand that, because simply just posting on Facebook, if you don't have enough people in your demographic following you for that listing, it won't do very much. Now, you can change that by investing in paid social targeting. And when you go paid, this is really when you can get hyper targeted precision advertising, and you can actually measure the engagement on that listing based on the investment, but it does take an extra investment in order to do this. But again, this is about getting as many eyeballs on it. Don't invest in this unless you've already invested in the media and in the presentation and the storytelling and the segmentation, so that you know exactly what message to say to what demographic, to what target buyer with the right story. And then you invest, you boost that with extra investment on the paid advertising side. Email marketing can work really, really well as well if you've got access to buyer agent networks or an email database of your target demographic for that listing. Print advertising still works. Again, this is like multimodal. It all layers into itself. It's not about one channel. It's actually about doing all of them, which is really going to maximize the number of eyeballs, but also reinforce the message to the same person across multiple channels. And that just helps to increase their excitement around something, their intention around something. Seeing the message once maybe doesn't resonate, seeing it again or a third time, all of a sudden now they're reconsidering and starting to dream about something that the first message didn't reach them out with. Search engine marketing also can have an impact, but generally the best way to approach that is with the location and community first. And you draw somebody in that way. I've seen a lot of success where you draw somebody in to get really excited with the community, the story about the community and who that's for, and then introducing listings to them as the next stage of that buyer's journey. The final step here is the open house, and there's really two ways to go about this. Probably a good idea to do both. A lot of people were doing virtual open houses at the beginning of COVID for obvious reasons, but then as everyone the world started to come back to normal, they started dropping it. But a virtual open house actually has a lot of power to it. It's something that can be pre-scheduled or can be a live event like this one, but it also creates a convenient way to get a higher number of eyeballs on that property. It's a way to activate people, to drive them into the in-person showing. It is also a way to get interest from out-of-area buyers who may not be able to take a trip without the level of activation that they need in order to justify that trip. It allows you to ask qualifying questions of those buyers in advance. Maybe they're not even qualified for that property, but it also allows you to get feedback too. You can get feedback on the property, how people are reacting. It allows you to adjust your strategy as you go along, and if you're not getting a high enough volume in person. And then have digital takeaways. I'm going to say this for the in-person open house too, but digital takeaways are longer lasting than print takeaways. A lot of print ends up in the garbage. People lose it. But if you've got someone saving something on their phone, if you've got someone saving something when they're browsing online on their computer, it actually gives them something to share with other people in a much easier way. It's really hard to share print. So I highly recommend doing virtual open houses, even though you're still doing in person. It's not instead of. And then the in-person experience, remember, and you know this, I feel silly even saying this, but buyers are seeing many properties in a single day. Make it memorable. when I was shopping for a house, very few agents were doing this. The best ones do this, but you want extra touches. Make sure the windows are open and everything's bright. Bring in flowers, food. You have print and digital takeaways. I just remember taking away just a lot of like printouts that like I lost a couple of them and then I couldn't remember that particular property. This is all about making it memorable. Once you've activated somebody, the more memorable you can make that experience, the more likely they're going to have further conversations about it. I've seen a lot of success with having QR codes on tablet displays that are set up kind of at the beginning of that open house experience, as well as on the lawn sign that takes them to a link that tells them about the community and everything to discover about that community and neighborhood. Can be really, really powerful. And those things, again, they become memorable, something that makes that experience stand out. And just like the virtual one, follow up and get tons of feedback. The more feedback you can get, and I had a great agent who would constantly, when I was selling, constantly try and follow up with the buyer agents to get feedback. But the more feedback that you can get, the more intel you have to make decisions about what to do next. So just to check, for your own sake, think about the properties you have on market, especially if you have many on market. You can miss something in that checklist because it's a lot of volume, and every home right now needs this kind of entire equation. So think about the quality of media, the pricing strategy. Are you story selling instead of just talking about features? Are you packaging that story in the right way so that it's more than just the features that you're talking about? It's more than just the house. You're going into kind of a more emotional journey through the house and the community and the lifestyle. And how are you thinking about the open house? Are you running a virtual open house? Are you distributing this across a multi-channel marketing strategy? All these things are really, really important. So it's a great time, I think, to answer some questions. I do want to just kind of let everyone know what we do is we are the packaging. We are the ones to create those interactive storybooks that help you level up and take the media that you've invested in and really take it to the next level. Tell that lifestyle story, get the emotional content in there, get people buying with their hearts and their minds, not just making calculations about their investment in a property. It has an impact. It really does. And the more people that get emotionally invested, the more that, price is all about what someone's willing to pay for it. If you are emotionally invested in a property, it's an incredible emotional purchase. You need to present your properties in that way if you're going to draw enough people in to make an offer. So we make it really easy for you to do that. It's completely automated. We can auto detect when you get a new listing, and we can create those storybooks automatically using magical AI. It's really amazing. We are also kind of at the cutting edge of AI and are able to now help you create hyper local content around that listing and around your market without having to go out to take photos with a photographer. So saves a ton of money, gives you that hyper local expertise that you're able to push out into social and to your audiences. And we have ready to go premium content about everything from lifestyle content, recipes, to how to declutter your space, to how to prepare your house for market. This saves you tons of time of having to create all that content yourself and distribute it. We do that for you. You can place your branding all over it. You can white label it, and we will actually automatically send it out to your social as well. So if this is something you're interested in, I highly recommend booking some time with us to talk further about your business. But I am happy to answer some questions. But I'm not seeing any comments here, so it sounds like I might have covered everything.
I believe you have. I haven't seen any comments or questions come in.
Okay, awesome. So if there are no additional comments, then I'm happy to wait a moment to see if they come in. But if this was valuable, please share your comments. Love to hear what you thought of this content. Did it give you some new inspiration or new ideas that you can take to market right now? Let me know. Okay. Well, there it is. I hope everyone has a fantastic Wednesday afternoon. Um, if you get the weather that we're getting right here, I hope you go out and enjoy the sunshine, and good luck with all of your listings. It's a tough market, but they can move. I've seen it. And I've seen agents have tons of success when they're running the right campaigns. Thank you very much for joining me today.